Hello.
Welcome to a special edition of the Heartland Journal Podcast. It's the Yaffee and Steve Show. Two great guys discussing, well, whatever's on their mind. So strap yourselves in for another great show.
Joining me on the show right now is Steve Abramowicz. He is the founder, contributor to the Heartland Journal out of Nashville. You can read that at heartlandjournal.com. Been off a couple of weeks, back from vacation. Steve, how are you, sir?
Me and the cat are back,
baby.
Yeah. Oh, hey, happy heavenly birthday to Toby Keith and an earthly one to Rocky Rambo, Cobretti Stallone. I love those guys.
Okay, nice. There you go. I like what we're going to start doing that. Just birthdays. I like that. So you texted me earlier because we always text about some of the topics we maybe want to discuss, and you said something that's kind of interesting. You're like, you're back from vacation and communism is coming back as well, or is on the rise in the U.S. So talk about that. I mean, we've been talking about the rise of the democratic socialists in many of these big cities, but what do you want to mention?
Yeah, I go away for 2 weeks and the whole thing falls apart. I mean, so here's my take on Europe, especially the former communist countries of like Croatia, which is where I was. And which was part of the old Yugoslavia, which was a combination of 7 countries that we now see on the map. Map makers made a lot of money the last decade having to change all these things around. But anyway, there's all of a sudden nostalgic for socialism. I was talking to this guy and I asked him, what do you think of Mondami in New York and AOC and these new DSA Democrats winning these elections last Tuesday? I was still there. And I totally thought he'd say something about like Islam and Muslims because I don't know if people have forgotten, but the whole Bosnian Serbian war was kind of about that. Like, immigration is not really working. We're not coexisting very well. So that was a big part of it. But instead, I think this guy was about 35. He had 2 kids, your age, I guess. He goes into his dad was a Communist Party member working for the only jobs around at the time, which was the government, him and his mom, and how much easier life was and everything was free. This was an Uber driver basically saying this, which is like the most capitalistic company ever. And yet he's missing the old days when you didn't have to work. And like the old saying goes, we pretend to work and they pretend to pay us like it's a good thing. So I immediately figured out that's what's going on in America. The 85% of mostly white, mostly female women that vote Democrat and aren't proud of our country, that was from a Gallup poll taken before the 250th 4th of July. I think it was Gallup. They want to be bums. That's why Mondami won with promises of government-run grocery stores and free bus rides, just like Croatia under communism. It's a lazy person's party, pot smoking, video game playing, Netflix binging, probably vax-injured voters with college degrees that gave them debt, but no useful job skills. So when Elizabeth Warren and Bernie promised to wipe out student loan debt and give them free college, they love it.
That's an interesting perspective. So you went over to Croatia. By the way, is that where Abramowicz is from? Is that why you went there? Or?
No, that means son of Abraham. That goes all the way back
to
the Genesis and the Bible. But no, we started out in Madrid to see the socialist Spain. Then we went to Croatia to go dip our toes in the Aegean Sea because I don't know if you heard, but it was like hottest summer ever. And then back to Milan to see corporate capitalist Northern Italy, which is great. So no roots or family, just a good old European vacation. And down south where it's cheaper than up north in, say, the UK or France where they'll or Germany where they'll jack up everything 25% and be like going to Broadway in Tennessee.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So it's like almost the opposite experience. We had a lot of those people with the World Cup from overseas coming over to the U.S. and just praising the country. Can't believe how great it is. So then you had the opposite experience.
Yeah, because I went the other direction. I guess I'm a contrarian. They basically, it's totally anti-American, but totally ex-Soviet Union, which is Croatia and France. So I love that. We saw those news clips where people were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe America is amazing, which reminds me exactly of during communism, before you were born, there was a Russian citizen who came to America and was on TV for going through a grocery store and being just blown away at how much surplus and produce we had, where they had to wait in lines and like there was all these shortages and stuff. It's like, no, that's what communism is, not free bus rides. That, by the way, where are those free bus rides, right? So, anyway, they every once in a while we got to learn the lesson that capitalism and America are awesome, and communism and the Western European way is socialism and not great.
Well, and I'm glad you brought up Europe, because a lot of times when we bring up the idea of socialism or communism, they'll say, well, we're not talking about Venezuela or Cuba or the ex-Soviet Union. We're talking about, say, Denmark. We're talking about Germany and France. They're socialist as well. And usually the response is, yeah, and they have a lot of economic problems, social problems that we just kind of ignore here. And then you look at Denmark, they have a pretty big welfare state, but they also have a lot of economic freedom beyond that.
They're capitalist societies. They just have a lot of burdensome regulations. And so I remember when Bernie was running, and he said, we want to be like Norway and Sweden. Norway literally came out and said, stop calling us communists. We're not communists. We actually fought the communists in World War II. You're wrong. You're lying, and stop it. And so, yeah, it's true that like companies like Nokia have to pay a lot of taxes to keep that welfare state alive, which is what America, unfortunately, has sort of tended towards, but they're not communists. Communism means the control of the means of distribution of everything. So if all of a sudden the America says we're going to co-opt not only the roads, but the concrete companies that pave the roads, now we're in communism. But as long as you can still make a buck paving those roads, then you still have a democratic Republican society. That's not Norway. That is former Soviet Union. That's Cuba. That's, or as Bernie calls it, Cuba. Yeah, we're a long way from that. And Alabama and Tennessee, where you and I care about, and Georgia, long way from that.
Yeah, thank God for our federalist system, where we have state rights as well. We can go to states that are a little bit more sane. I'm speaking with Steve Abramowicz. He is with the Heartland Journal. So I know you wanted to talk about the latest with Mitch McConnell as well. Some people were literally asking if he's still alive. Apparently he is recovering in the hospital. I saw that Scott Jennings said he spoke with him for a little bit, but what do you think about that whole situation?
Yeah, okay, Mitch McConnell. So number one, he's been there too long. Like Dianne Feinstein from San Francisco before him, they've been on the shelf long beyond their sell-by dates. So he really shouldn't even be there so that we could be into this crisis, let's call it. And he's been there since 1985. I was a freshman in high school. I think you were in diapers. So
I was -1, just so.
Oh, okay, diapers. Yeah.
No, I wasn't born yet.
But so is he. But now he's back in those, right? So he's a falling down, stroke prone, and they still had him propped up like Weekend at Bernie's as chairman of several important committees, meaning no work is getting done. So he's on ag, which has a big bill still coming, a military, which has a 60% increase request on the table for over $1 trillion. I mean, these are big things that he's not there to deal with. So, but the thing is about the whole news cycle, the Senate is out of session, except for that quick gavel in and to keep Trump's nominees from being, recess appointments. I don't know if you ever talked about that, but it doesn't reconvene until July 13th. So the fact that he's an invalid in the hospital, whether he's brain dead, like Laura Loomer said, or he's going to get up and, run a marathon tomorrow, it doesn't really matter. The Senate's not working until the 13th. And even still, when the chairman takes leave, the most senior member takes charge. So it really doesn't matter if he's there or not, to be honest. His committees are still heavily Republican, if that even matters anymore. So, the most interesting thing I found about it was his wife, Eileen Chao. She's a fellow at Hudson Institute, so she frequently speaks, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, she ran off to China before he fell down or whatever." That was probably planned months ago, so it's not really odd. It is kind of odd she didn't fly home immediately, but my guess is that the doctor said, "No, you don't have to rush back. He's going to be fine." But they're just not telling us because that's the way they work. And everyone's like, oh, my God, Logan Act. It doesn't prevent people from speaking abroad. You just can't do business on behalf of the U.S. So the whole thing is kind of a mess and silly. And Kentucky, has had this guy there for a long, long time.
Yeah, I mean, we could blame McConnell and the party and everything, but really it's the voters as well. The voters keep putting him back in. I mean, we've known for a while that he's had these health problems. And yeah, I know there's a 6-year term, but you would think at some point, he should have probably done the right thing and resigned a little bit ago. But even beyond that, the voters still put him in there.
He should have resigned, you're right, but you're right. And 6 years ago, he wasn't in this bad a shape. And his legacy, basically, I'll tell you what that's going to be. But Kentucky has this thing where 90 days for a special election, which would put that around October at the earliest, and then November 1st would be the swearing in. His replacement already went through the primaries, and if he wins, January 4th, he gets a 6-year term regardless of any special election. So it's really kind of no big deal. It's really kind of sad that his life has come down to this, but hey, thank you for not letting Merrick Garland be on the Supreme Court. That's pretty much his legacy. After 47 years in the Senate, that will be it. So it just goes to show you that the Senate, a little bit like with this Graham Plattner guy, they'll throw you over the side if they have to and only use you when they need to. Like, will you win like Byrd or Dianne Feinstein just for that vote? And then you're out of there. Not a lot of close friendships in the Senate, let's put it that way.
Steve Abramowicz is with the Heartland Journal. Real quick, I know you wanted to comment on the fact that Andrew Gillum, who was very, very close to becoming the next governor of Florida. Luckily, DeSantis beat him, but I was in Florida at the time. It was a very close election. Pretty disturbing. Well, he was just arrested in Alabama, had to do with drugs. He's had a bunch of legal troubles in recent years since that election loss.
I mean, can you imagine? Just think back to 2000, I think it was 2020, and had he won, which he lost by very little, how the world, not just Florida, would have been without a DeSantis as probably the best governor, in my opinion, in the last decade, certainly during the Trump era, now 12 years on. And it was all because he was exposed on film like a couple of days before the election. And, if it had been a couple of days after, they had been stuck with the guy, passed down drugs or whatever, passed out with drugs and I think a boyfriend. And so what you got was dodging a bullet, literally like Trump did in Butler, Pennsylvania, because that guy would have been a complete disaster and it would look a lot more like California's LA or Illinois with Pritzker or New York with Hochul than it does with DeSantis. And everyone's moving there. That they're getting rid of property taxes, hopefully. They've already got low income tax. I mean, the country is tipping over from New York down to Florida, and it's only because of DeSantis. And had he lost, and Trump did endorse him and bravely shot him up near the end there, he wasn't a shoo-in to win by any means, they would have got this guy who just got busted for possession in Alabama, of all places. So, he's got some issues, let's put it that way. Thank God that the country voted correctly in that one, or a lot of differences would have happened because he was there for COVID. He was there for all this, debt that they've cleaned up, for the schools that they've had to fight for. Like, literally, Florida would be a whole different place if it wasn't for that election.
You're exactly right. I'm speaking with Steve Abramowicz. You can read all his stuff at heartlandjournal.com. Check out his podcast as well. Steve, always appreciate it, my friend. We'll talk to you again next week.
Can I get one more thing in 20 seconds?
Yeah, of course.
Are we going to commercial? Okay. So last thing, I'm hosting an event for your friend and mine, Brandon Lewis, and his TennesseeConservativeNews.com website.
Right.
It ain't easy running a conservative news website, believe me. So I'm doing this in Middle Tennessee. He's over there in Chattanooga, so some new donors, hopefully. It's on July 23rd, 5 p.m. I got Senator Brent Taylor from #MakeMemphisMatter coming, and Todd Warner, both running for the new congressional seat, Tennessee 9. Other folks will be there, plus Brandon and this whole staff. So if you can come, tell your friends, donate, even if you can't. July 23rd, Kokomo Trading Company in Franklin, Tennessee, hosted by me, host of the Heartland Journal Podcast, the third and only conservative outlet in Red, Tennessee, along with you, the talk monster guy.
And I do want to ask, can people find out more? I know they can find out more at TennesseeConservativeNews.com. Are you going to post it on your site as well?
It's on my Facebook. It's everywhere. But yeah, go to Brandon's thing. You can actually buy tickets.
Okay, awesome. Well, Steve, appreciate you mentioning that. He had mentioned that as well before, so I'm glad you brought that up. Steve, appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon.
See you next week. Bye-bye.
All right, there you go. We'll be back in a moment here on Yaffee Live.
Hey, this is Stephen Steele, and you're listening to the Heartland Journal Podcast.
He's with the Heartland Journal. Go to heartlandjournal.com, see all his stuff there, or listen to his podcast, or just, listen to him on this show every week. Steve, how are you, sir?
I am doing great. Speaking to you live from the new Heartland Journal studios in Franklin, Tennessee. What's going on? Hey, by the way, if you're the voice of reason, what does that make me? The voice of confusion? The voice of speculation? Conspiracy? What? What am I?
I don't know. You got to come up with something. You got to get a brand.
The voice of verification.
The voice of verification? It's a mouthful, but you could say that.
All right. I like words that start, or phrases that start with the same letter, VV. I'll take it.
Alliteration.
I got a V in my name, so I got you beat on that one, Michael.
Okay, fair enough. So we had a caller in the last segment that was really trying to figure out what the main differences are between our three gubernatorial candidates in Tennessee for the Republican nomination. You have John Rose, Marsha Blackburn, Monty Fritz. The main difference I would see is that Monty Fritz is a little bit more of a firebrand, I guess is the best way to put it. But in terms of policy, I'm guessing there's not a huge difference. He did bring up the school choice thing, where Monty Fritz seems to be against a lot of the school choice program. But what would you say is the biggest difference between the three?
Well, one knows what a woman is, for sure. I'm not sure about the other two, but there's that. Marsha has been a known name brand in Tennessee for a long, long time.
Yeah.
She's worked her way up the ranks to get to the federal government as senator. Everyone knows her. She's an A-rate, the highest rated, by the way. I don't know if you looked this up yet, but A-plus rated Liberty score. And you know how I focus on that when it comes to senator. She is a good one. The Senate is losing, whether she wins or retires, they're losing a good one. So that's the main thing. And of course, money. The other main difference that people on the street have been telling me is she's raising a bunch of money out of state, and they don't really like that in Tennessee. She's been in Missouri. She's been in your neck of the woods in Georgia. She's been kind of everywhere. And if you look at her donor rolls, a lot of out-of-state stuff, whereas Rose lent it to himself. He's a very wealthy man by nature, I guess, or whatever you want to say, and so he is self-funding, whereas Monty is kind of doing the door-to-door grassroots, trying to get everybody to understand what he's all about with very low dollars. So you've got your establishment, big out-of-state dollars versus your grassroots versus your self-funded. So really it is the three heads of the Republican Party hydra to choose from. And from where I'm sitting, I'll take it. I'll take any of them. I think as long as it's one of those three, which it is, and not Jerry Brown or what's her name, Jerry Green. Jerry Brown was the governor of California when I lived there. Jerry Green, the Democrat, I'm all good. I like all three.
Yeah, and the caller was asking more of like, what's the difference on policy? And he was like, I don't think there really is much of a difference, and that's kind of what I said. In terms of what they would.
No, there is. I mean, to be honest with you, for example, one of them is talking about one of the things that's very near and dear to my heart, which is a property tax cap for these counties that have been outrageously jacking up rates on folks. And the same person has been talking about spraying things from above, not doing that anymore. The same guy has been talking about, what's the other one that I love so much? Doing something far more homegrown issues that we don't like. So property tax is grocery tax. He wants to get rid of the grocery tax. The other two are talking about kind of DC stuff. They're talking about China. They're talking about, things that I'm not so sure the farmers, the 300,000 family farmers in Tennessee really care about, whereas Monty is. So that's the biggest difference. He doesn't have the name recognition. He doesn't have the money to run, but he is talking about the issues that Tennessee cares about. And he's the only one that said, yes, I will debate, when the other two keep ducking debates. I don't know if you've been noticing that.
Oh, yeah.
Marsha's been
We had one in town that he was the only one who showed up was Monty Fritz.
He's the only one that stood up. So the biggest difference, in my humble opinion, is one is a talk-the-talk Republican, walk-the-walk Republican. The other two, a little bit swampy, a little bit establishment. Got to say it.
Okay, very interesting. I mean, part of the problem from what you said is that John Rose and Marsha Blackburn are working in D.C. right now. So it kind of makes sense why they would focus on that. Although, Marsha Blackburn was instrumental in, making sure we didn't have a state income tax in Tennessee. I say we, I live in Georgia. I still have to deal with the state income tax, but in Tennessee, you don't.
Yeah, she definitely has that claim to fame that she was instrumental in that, but that was a long time ago, and it's always about, what have you done for me lately? And she'd said something on news the other day that got a little people's radars up. She had said something about Starbucks coming in here with a $30 million stipend, and that it was going to be made back really quickly in revenue from
payroll taxes. That was a gaffe. Yeah.
Does that mean she may want an income tax on her agenda?
I doubt it.
To go to China, and he was the biggest China hawk. So who knows? I'm just saying. She has to answer for that. And if she won't debate, how are we supposed to know what she really meant?
Yeah, it's the typical thing. When you're up by 30 points, you don't want to debate. And when you're an unknown, of course, you want to debate to get attention. Happens in many, many states. I really wish, though, that she would debate because it would help.
I wish she would, too, but her handlers don't want her to, and it has a lot to do with sometimes, like we saw in that elevator interview, she isn't that great off the cuff, and so maybe they don't want her to, but she needs to, and I think she will by the time we're closer to the election, but this is the key to that. Early voting starts soon, this week, and she is, in her polls, up 30 points, so I agree with you. When you're up 30 points, all you have to do is lose points if you make a mistake, but her competitors have some internal polling too, and they think it's much closer. I saw one that said 15 points, which is still a lot, but not insurmountable if you make the right case. So she really does need to stand up and say, look, I am on top of my game. I do care about Tennessee, where I'm born and raised. Well, she's not actually born and raised here, but she grew up here. So that's the job of a candidate, is to say, hey, I care about what you care about. Vote for me, and I'll support you. Whereas, like I said, Monty Fritz is getting the farmers all riled up. She's going to have to explain, I would do that too, not impose a payroll tax on Starbucks, because that means every company gets the payroll tax.
Yeah, I'm guessing that was more of just a gaffe. I could seriously doubt that Marsh.
Guess when you're talking about the first governor in 8 years, right? I mean, no guessing allowed. You need to know.
Yeah, no, I agree. So you also wanted to talk a little bit about inflation, and the numbers are kind of interesting because, obviously inflation's a little bit higher than what we want. It seems that most of it, though, is caused by the war in Iran and gas prices. But in terms of one of the core inflation numbers for last month, it was the first time we recorded deflation since 2020 in the CPI numbers, which is kind of interesting. So outside of the war in Iran, there actually are some good signs on inflation.
There are. And it came as a surprise. The most important thing, and it plays right into what we were just talking about, this election that we're going to have in November, inflation is going to be probably the number one issue in most people's minds because of the pocketbook issues, right? You don't want to go to the grocery store and pay these higher inflated prices to try to feed your family, or have to work, 2 jobs, or have a husband and wife both working while the kids at some woke school. So 67 of 67 economists were wrong. 100% inaccurate. Inflation fell, didn't rise. That's usually a surprise, and the market obviously reacted. June CPI, basket of all the goods that we actually use, was down 0.4%. Okay, not earth-shattering, but in the right direction. And they thought it was going to be up. So it was down, not negative. So, and that's, by the way, the biggest drop since April of 2020. Remember what was going on back then? That's 6 years low, and that was after COVID. So good news. But I've been watching the rise in Japan interest rates, right? That's the real story, and that has a lot to do with what you just said, the war in Iran, more than it does here in America, because we don't get our oil from Iran or the Straits of Hormuz. They do. And so that's telling you there's a big problem there, and it has been closed to oil transportation to Japan and China, who gets their oil from Iran, right? And so does Russia. So we don't... when our prices start falling, it's a little slower than usual because we have been backfilling Japan's demand for the first time ever. We had record exports to Japan last month. That's the problem. It's not inflation. I think it's supply and demand. But
it is.
Trump, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, you're right. One of the issues people don't really think about, they ask, why are oil prices still higher for us if we're not getting our oil from Iran? Well, we're selling a lot to those countries that do, which means the supply goes down. And anytime the supply goes down, the price can go up. So if we're selling it to China or Japan now, that means the price will go up for our consumers as well. But I did want to say something real quick, and I'll let you respond. It's not even that inflation. It's not even that the inflation rate went down. There was actually deflation. So there were actually some prices that went down, which is pretty interesting. I mean, that usually does not happen, and this is the first time it has happened since 2020. So, I mean, that's a pretty good sign.
Yeah, but there's a little bit of funny business with that. Did you see what the largest component of deflation was?
Let's see here. What was it?
31% in healthcare. I don't believe that number to be true, to be honest with you. It could have been an error. It could have been whatever. They always revise these numbers. So 6 months from now, they may say, it's actually up 0.1. But in the meantime, healthcare was the biggest reason for that fall, and I don't see how that could happen. You go to the doctor, emergency room, you're paying more than ever before, and your insurance is costing you more than ever before. Mm-hmm. So how exactly that works out?
Well, I was going to say, well, it might be because of some of the reforms in the big, beautiful bill that cut some of that in terms of government spending. I mean, I don't know. I'm just totally speculating, but...
It's a complicated thing. They call it the dismal science for a reason. But here's back to your original question. It would be really nice if the 3 Tennessee governor candidates would run on getting rid of some of the inflation pain, like grocery tax. The state has a rate of 4%, plus we have local taxes that can get it to another 2.75, and that results in a grocery tax of between 6.25% and 6.75% in most areas when you add federal. And any gas taxes to help, and one actually is running on that repeal. Grocery, actually I'm wrong. Grocery, it's 27.4 cents per gallon for gas, 26 cents tax plus 1.4 cents special petroleum fee, and federal makes it 44.4 cents. Not as bad as California or my old state of Washington, but still, wouldn't you like to save 44.4 cents per gallon if you're driving to work and be able to do something else with that, like pay groceries without taxes? We're one of the only states that have these grocery taxes, so that would be good. We have farmers to help move their product, but we can't control that at the federal level, but we could at the state. And one candidate is running for that, and that's what you're supposed to do in inflationary times, not the opposite, which is raise these taxes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had called for at least
$34 million in that gas tax last year. So wouldn't it be nice to have the $34 million going towards something else? Instead of like Ford or Starbucks.
Yeah, I had called for a temporary suspension of the gas tax, at least temporary. I mean, obviously, I'd like it to be permanent, some of the gas tax suspension, but I called for at least a temporary one while the war in Iran was going on. And Georgia actually did that for a while, but then, of course, it came back on. So I think you're onto something there. Real quick before...
So Murfreesboro, Tennessee, they had property owners, they get a reduction in property tax following a vote by the city council. So it is really simple to do. You just need leaders who will do it, and there's only one of the 3 that have been talking about it. I wish all 3 would talk about it.
Speaking with Steve Abramowicz, he's with the Heartland Journal. Real quick, I know you're hosting an event along with the Tennessee Conservative that's coming up in Franklin.
Yes, 23rd of July, next week, actually. We are having a bunch of folks. Tickets are almost sold out, actually. So if you're interested and in the neighborhood, hurry up. Brandon Lewis is the only conservative news outlet in town besides you on radio and me in podcasting, in my opinion. And I'm trying to help them out. So in Middle Tennessee. So we're having this event, and it's at the moment it's very popular.
All right, there you go. So check it out at TennesseeConservativeNews.com. Steve, always appreciate you coming on. I know we'll talk to you again next time.
All right, peace in our time. Later.
My name's Ryan Matta. I do a show called Matta Effect on LFA TV, and I'm here on the Heartland Journal Podcast.
Welcome back to Yaffee Live. This is Talk Radio 102.3, a revolution in common sense here on the Talk Monster. Joining me on the show, as he does every week at this time, is Steve Abramowicz. He is the founder of the Heartland Journal. You can read his stuff, heartlandjournal.com. Check out his podcast. He's out of Nashville. Steve, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Sorry, I was a little distracted. That guitar intro was pretty tough. I like that. That was good.
You know, I like to... Yeah. Can you play guitar, Steve?
Yes.
No, you broke up for a second.
Yes.
Oh, you can?
Yes,
Okay.
I can play guitar.
Yes,
Oh,
I
okay.
can. Yes, I can.
Any other instruments? Or are you just an all-around musician, or what?
Mostly just things that have strings.
Okay.
Really bad fiddle, really bad mandolin, really bad guitar, to be honest with you. But I got a bunch of them surrounding me right now where I'm sitting.
Okay, I mean, I'm a drummer, so I guess we have to start a band.
Oh, let's do a band. What would we call it?
I don't know. That's what I was saying. You gotta come up with a name or something. So,
I'll think about that.
Max is one.
I'm going to be working on
reason. The voices of reason. I was trying to give you a layup there. No.
There we go. There we go. Max, yes, Max.
I'm going to try to be coming up with something. I'll be working on that.
Oh, great.
Okay.
And I just want, I can't
What do you
wait.
play, Max? Are you a keyboardist or a trombone guy? What are you?
No, I play radio.
Yeah.
You can push buttons on the board. Yes.
There you go.
All right, Steve. So you told me earlier that you want to talk about how Amazon fixes prices. So I don't know if there was a specific story that happened, or did something happen to you with Amazon? What's going on here?
No, they have been outed. I've been basically looking at a legal filing so that you don't have to, basically. And it says here according to the FTC and American law, price fixing is an illegal anti-competitive agreement between participants on the same side of a market to artificially raise, lower, or stabilize prices by subverting normal supply and demand. It eliminates competition and forces consumers to pay inflated rates. Now, you don't have to go to Yale Law School because I just told you the deal, but there's this fascinating legal case coming out from Amazon, and I've been reading these docs. Internal email. It's always the email. This is what got Bill Gates busted in the 90s. Emails are paper trails, people. Don't say it if you don't want to see it in either your mom's eyes or in the New York Times front page, okay? So, revealed in court in interviews with ex-employees describing how Amazon's practices drove up prices for competitors like Walmart and Target. Amazon, of course, denies price-fixing claims and says it works to lower costs for consumers. But do they? Not according to the whistleblower.
Okay, so what does that mean, though? Is that illegal?
Yeah, price fixing. I just told you. A modern leather table lamp was listed at Walmart, went from $24.99 up to $39 because, and they also priced this air fryer on a retail site called Newegg that went from $84.99 up to $149.99. So the customer gets jacked because Amazon was trying to overprice it so that they could beat the underprice when they repriced it over at their competitors, Walmart and Target. That's not the right thing to do. That's price fixing, allegedly.
Okay, so yeah, I guess I was just a little bit confused there. Are they not allowed to? You said that's price fixing. They're not allowed to.
They force their competitors to raise their prices so that they can then refresh their site to have lower prices. So in some internal emails, Amazon employees flagged low product prices on rival retailer sites as threat to Amazon's own profitability and informed the product's suppliers that their sales on Amazon.com have been cut or might soon be cut going forward. Can't do that.
Oh, okay. I was trying to figure out which part was the actual illegal part. So that seems to be it. Okay, I under.
Yeah, price fixing and getting their suppliers to bend to their wishes, saying that they're going to give them lower prices, so make sure to deliver to Amazon, and then their other people that they supply to, because they make something that's available to everyone, are either unaffordable or discounted. That's called price gouging, dumping, or fixing.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. So
Home
Amazon
Depot,
is
all these big companies that they supply for are now in this lawsuit.
right. Okay. Gotcha. So all right. That's interesting. You're right. It's always in the email. It's always like they have some kind of email that they put out. And they're like, oh, here are the emails. I know you also wanted to talk about AI a little bit, and I guess, well, talk about what you wanted to mention when it came to AI.
Yeah, so you and I kind of will probably go down in history as breaking this thing that this AI big outroll of these data centers was probably harmful to humans, especially our drinking water. And so I spent a lot of time doing homework also in the financial statements, unfortunately, again, so you don't have to. And we live in this era of big tech industrial complex, so it's unavoidable. These things are everywhere, our phones, our cars, everything. So looking at financials of the big five, Alphabet, Amazon, Alphabet is Google, Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, and Oracle, TikTok, they revealed hidden debt of $1.65 trillion, up eightfold in just 4 years, on off-balance sheet debt as they race to build these damn data centers.
You're still on the crusade against the data centers, huh? You know they're coming, right?
I know they're coming. You can only put your finger in the dike, like, I forget who character that was, but the firms that, see, here's where it gets really wonky.
Mm-hmm.
These firms that I just listed expect future earnings to exceed those debts, right? That's why you take on debt. You figure you'll pay it back, but that's way bigger than we do, 1.65 trillion with a T. So the market's begun to kind of show concerns. So places like Morgan Stanley and Moody's, they both called it out too. It's not just me anymore. So the concerns are growing about how they'll pay for it, but also pay back their chip makers, because those deals are already done and delivered. You got Samsung and Taiwan Semiconductor. They saw big gains in their stocks from big orders. So now they got to hope the checks don't bounce. And we're talking like South Korea, Taiwan, and China. Those, they're not like they're capitalist companies like ours, Intel and whatnot. So they're all very worried. And then closer at home, 557,000 signatures against the Zoo data center. But despite that huge outcry against it, DC blocks from Georgia, they actually closed, we learned last night, on the property and are going to go forward. But even counties and cities are starting to say enough. So it's not just me. And do you know about subsonic and supersonic noise?
I've heard this, but
all right.
I mean, I'd be honest with you, Steve. I think a lot of the stuff against data centers is like a moral panic. It reminds me a lot of the fracking. Remember when everyone was against fracking? And they said, it's going to ruin the water and it's going to be earthquakes. And then it's been fine. It's been great for our country. It's been an economic boon. I sense that a little bit with the data center thing, but tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, let's just look at the poor zoo animals then as an example. And you're not wrong. I mean, we need this stuffed, but I don't know if we need this much, but we'll see how it goes. But these 10 Walmart superstore-sized warehouses blast this subsonic noise pollution. Sounds like thunder and earthquakes. They make animals crazy. So these poor zoo animals are going to have to listen to that 24/7, and the neighbors have to live with the lights on 24/7, all just for storing more cat dancing TikTok videos on your phone. I don't think it's worth it, in my opinion. And so meanwhile, the Nashville's mayor's office has also been talking about using eminent domain.
Yeah, I saw that. I had that in my bullet points,
So here's where we're getting into, like, wait a minute, there's a problem here. Because that would be a terrible, scary precedent of government taking private property because of this issue, right? So It's not just, Steve worried about, is fracking going to lower oil prices domestically? It's about, is the noise, the air, the ozone, and the government going to abuse this as an opportunity to do things that we don't like? And then tech is supposed to create jobs, right? So shockingly, 105 million Americans are not working. That's more than during COVID or the Great Recession. So this economic miracle of the early 2000s that data centers and AI and Grok are supposed to give us, not working. And remember, this whole woman's lib thing about not having babies for your career, actresses say that a lot. Growing group of dropout women who are neither working nor looking for work, have no children under the same roof with them and no husbands present. So that's not working anymore either. And by the way, there's 342 million Americans, so that's like a third. That's not good. That's right for socialism. It's not good for, jobs in big tech.
Well, yeah, and that's one of the issues that has come up with data centers. They think it'll bring tax revenue. It might create some construction jobs, but it's my understanding, it doesn't really take a lot of people to run it. You just have a couple of people, so it's not going to create a lot of jobs.
No, it takes a lot of people to build it, and a lot of copper, and a lot of gold, and a lot of precious, stuff to make those things, and a lot of water, obviously, to cool them down. But once it's built and done, it takes like from 1 to 10, depending on how big it is. So that's not a great deal, but they give away these huge 40-year tax breaks where they don't even have to pay sales tax. And guess what? the chips that I just talked about that go into them, they become obsolete in less than a year. So then you got to rebuy all of this stuff, which is great for the chip manufacturers. They get to do that, but it's really, really bad for the 1-point-something trillion in debt to be now 2-point-something trillion in debt if they double the size of how many of these things they are. So I'm really, really concerned about the economic model of data centers and if it's really beneficial to the bottom line of tech companies or not, especially tech companies like Amazon, who I just told you earlier, you can't trust on even pricing to do what they normally do, which is sell books and CDs online.
Well, and I guess I'll ask you. There's sort of two. I know they're related, but there's sort of two different issues here. The data center thing is part of it, but it sounds like you're saying AI as a whole might not end up being the job creator they're suggesting it will be. Is that kind of your argument?
No, it's a job destroyer. If you've seen the amount of layoffs year to date that have happened at these big tech companies, big and small, you can kind of see that it's replacing a lot of people. I work in the entertainment industry and I see a lot of people below the line, we call it, not having to go. They just bought for $500 million Ben Affleck's AI studio company to basically replace all of the people down below that make jobs and earn livings, especially in LA, for the work that goes behind the scenes of making a movie. You don't need them anymore. So AI has not proven itself to be a job creator. It's only so far been a job destroyer.
Okay, so, and you don't think in the future it could be, because there's always that creative destruction aspect that it kills some jobs, it'll create more jobs. You just don't buy into that?
Well, back to our band analogy earlier on, I'm a big fan of The Clash, and Joe Strummer said the future is unwritten. So I don't know what it's going to do. I didn't know what would happen when the horse and buggy went away with the car. Right. I didn't know what, Confederate colored flags were going to do ultimately in the long term. But I can tell you this much. Ford, who created the assembly line and priced cars affordable for their own employees to work with and commute, and it opened up the Great West, and we basically won the environmental war of transportation with that type of model where people could actually be productive. I don't see TikTok videos of cats dancing and what I had for breakfast being all that profitable and productive.
Okay. All right. Steve Abramowicz, he's with the Heartland Journal. You can read his stuff at heartlandjournal.com. You got your big event coming up tomorrow, right? Over there in Franklin?
Yes, but don't tell anybody. It's a big secret because I sold more tickets than there's people. I'm going to have to stand in the back. So too late for that. I'll report back on how it went, but don't show up. You can't get in.
Okay. Well, that's good, though. It's good you, sold out.
Oh, yeah. Anyone else who wants to do that in the future, I am the man. I sold that thing out to the rafters. Man. I'm getting good at that.
All right, Steve Abramowicz. I appreciate it, my friend. I know we'll talk to you again next week.
Adios.
All right, there you go.
Hi, my name is Tracy Slepcevic, and I'm the best-selling author of Warrior Mom, A Mother's Journey in Healing Her Son with Autism, and I'm here on the Heartland Journal.
Welcome back to Yaffee Live. This is Talk Radio 102.3, and every Wednesday on the show, we speak with Steve Abramowicz. He's the founder of the Heartland Journal, contributor as well. He's got his podcast. You can find it all at heartlandjournal.com. And Steve, you had a good event last week with our good friends at the Tennessee Conservative, and a lot of high-profile, members of Congress, the state legislature were there, correct?
Yeah. We had Andy Ogles. We had Senator Brent Taylor, as in #MakeMemphisMatter, star of the Yaffee Show Live when I filled in, and Senator Warner, Assemblyman Warner, running for the same position as Taylor, and then some other Middle Tennessee folks that you probably don't care about.
Okay. But those are the big ones. Andy Ogles was there, right?
Andy Ogles, yep. I said him first. He was generous enough to come because he's in my new district, and so he works for me, and he had to come, basically. Just kidding, but thank you, Andy. It was a sellout crowd. We had standing room only. The good news for you is that means Tennessee Conservative News lives on a little longer because it was a fundraiser for Brandon and him, so he can continue to come on your show and entertain everybody. And I got him to sing the very next day, so next time he's on, ask him about his new singing career thanks to Steve Abramowicz.
Oh, great. Just what the audience wants. They want to hear Brandon Lewis sing, I'm sure.
It was good. It was good. I'll tell you. I'll let him tell you all about it.
Okay. So we got to talk about the news today. Dr. Anthony Fauci, a.k.a. Mr. Science, has decided to plead the fifth. What are your thoughts just initially on this? They're saying that maybe he really can't do it because he got pardoned so they could hold him in contempt. But what do you think?
Oh, he can do it. He can do anything he wants, and he did do it. But, there are honestly 4 people in public life that I just can't stomach. Tony Fauci, Debbie Birx, Barack Hussein Obama, and Randy Weingarten. And they all have in common not only fleecing the system and lying to the media, and therefore us, with Birx lying to all 50 governors, therefore us directly, and Randy destroying a generation of school kids, including my daughter and son's education over COVID. But it got me to Tennessee, so I guess I have to forgive them ultimately. But yes, I do not like Tony Fauci. And so if he gets something out of this, great, but I don't think he will.
So they had to do what, virtual learning? Because you were in where were you, in Washington at the time? Or
I was in Seattle. I was 5 blocks away from ground zero for COVID, and it turns out it's all a lie. And I knew this because I was sitting there and I could look out my window and say, people aren't dropping dead, but CNN's telling people they are in the other 49 states. So I knew it was a fraud, and he was the ringleader of the fraud, and I knew Donald Trump was kind of getting led around by the nose on this thing, no pun intended. But the first article I ever wrote when I took over the Heartland Journal was called Ashley's Diary, about Joe Biden's daughter losing her diary. Remember all that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They said it was stolen, but more likely left in a cab. But we found out, more about the president than we wanted to know, and a lot like my other neighbor, Bill Gates, when the Justice Department went after Microsoft back in the 80s, I guess 90s, for being a monopoly, he thought all his emails would stay private. But turned out, to be a paper trail that cost the company billions in court. So, Rand Paul, senator from Kentucky, has been after Fauci for years. He's like the only one, and held this hearing today. But he let out all of Dr. Science's diary pages ahead of time, so we got to see the real Anthony Fauci.
Yeah. So do you think that's really why he's pleading the fifth? Let's say they never got access to that diary. You think he would still plead the fifth, or what?
Yeah, because today is a distraction. Fun to see him squirm and plead the fifth, and his lawyer was tossed out, for the cameras. That's all funny. We love that. But what about the documentary evidence of malfeasance, fraud, mass neglect, homicide, and dare I say alleged murder? I mean, the big picture is that the military-industrial complex, the biopharmaceutical complex, and the big Wall Street banks that I harp on every day continue to do whatever the hell they want. A pardon is absolute. He didn't have to even show up until that's worked out. Yes, it was an auto pen, but oh well. He doesn't have the pleading the fifth. Now, here's an interesting thing. Pleading the fifth is fine and dandy because it's the Senate. The Senate can't prosecute anybody. All they can do is refer non-binding to the Department of Justice, where it's always been anyway. So a guy named Todd Blanche, who took over for our friend Pam Bondi, is now in his court. He needs to do something. And you can tell by the vibe in the country, everybody wants to see something done justice-wise for Fauci and the rest of them, in my opinion, Birx and even Weingarten for what she did to the schools. But it's going to have to come from the Justice Department. And who runs the Justice Department? Donald Trump.
So, what could they do, though, because he was pardoned? What I heard,
Well, there's a lot of things that he was pardoned for, but there's a lot of things he did. Like, let's just say, give it to The Hague, make it a crime against humanity, and then there's no pardon or pleading the fifth for that one. That's a crime against humanity and the world's largest class action lawsuit, because what he did affected everybody in the whole wide world. And by the way, I'm not saying that he went in front of the podium and said anything wrong. What he did was he wrote down in his diary that there was very few people dying from this, around the same as the flu, because now we know it was the flu, 0.01 to 0.02%. Well, guess what? He went before Congress and said 2%, which makes it a pandemic. The only reason he did that was to make it emergency use only for his favorite drug of the day, of which he gets royalties for, et cetera, et cetera. So that's lying to Congress. He didn't get a pardon for that one. Just like he didn't get a pardon in Africa or Asia or Europe for potentially a lot of people being harmed with something that he said was safe and effective. I put videos all over my Twitter feed about him saying, get the shot, you'll be fine. No, that is not true. And he knew it in his diary. So like the Bill Gates scenario where the emails and the paper trail got him busted, here we go with Fauci. He got himself busted, not for posing for InStyle magazine in his sunglasses next to his pool and his, work shoes.
Yeah, there's a debate over the pardon because, Rand Paul came out earlier this week and said, that pardon is pretty vague because it really just said he's pardoned for anything that he could possibly be charged with before. But Rand Paul says maybe that doesn't count. But then there was an issue of, well, he could lie to Congress after the fact, but that's why he's pleading the fifth. But now they're saying maybe he should be held in contempt because once you have a pardon, you can't plead the fifth.
That is true, and contempt of Congress has absolutely no, they can't do anything about it except give it to the Department of Justice again. So it always goes back there. That's the branch of the government that makes these things. I mean, think back, Michael, to our lives in 2021. I know you were just a pup, but it was a living hell, and he knew none of it was necessary. Even went on 60 Minutes, the most watched news program, in the country weekly, and said masks were unnecessary unless you're sick. And then later said, no,
I remember that, yeah.
Just didn't want to run on masks, so actual surgeons didn't run out of supply, white lie, fib, noble lie, I think is what it was called in JAMA. And after billions of these masks were created that ended up in the landfills and the ocean, he changed again and said, yeah, go ahead, wear 2, wear 3. If you're swimming in the chlorinated pool, you got to wear one. Nasal pharynx. It's crazy time. We lived through this. And I should mention, he also got into a lawsuit with Moderna over future royalties from mRNA, knowing full well, like his old AZT drug for AIDS in the 80s with remdesivir didn't work, wasn't safe or effective. Remember that? First 90%, then 85%, then, 50-50. It actually proved to be negative efficacy, so that the old, Hippocratic Oath, first do no harm, out the window. If nothing else, he's got to lose his MD license. I put that on Twitter too.
So, I want to put a button on this topic. I know you had posted this on X, and so I'll play it here real quick.
You're here taking the fifth. You could sit for InStyle magazine and get $1 million in cash awards, but now the cat's got your tongue. I bet he does. I tell you what, here's my conclusion from all of this. This was really all about you the whole time. Somewhere along the way, you lost your way. You may have been a good public servant at one time. I don't know. But I can tell you from reading your emails now, from looking at what you did, how you used your employees, somewhere along the line, it became all about you. You became a narcissist and a megalomaniac and a liar. And you've lied to the American people, and you've lied to this body. And you've disgraced your profession by doing it. You called yourself the most famous scientist in the world. You've done more to harm science than anybody in my lifetime. And I hope you'll go home and write that in your diary.
All right, what do you think?
I think that's exactly what I said, only he's, a senator and gets paid, $180,000 a year to say it. I get nothing from you. But I have a good time. Yeah, no, he is a narcissist. It's obvious. Who writes a diary and who then decides to keep a paper trail that would, I forgot. I wrote I wrote an article way back when, after the Ashley Diary one, about Deborah Birx and how she literally admitted that her job was to tell all 50 governors what to do with bogus information. So they were completely complicit in all of this. And they put us through hell with, remember, the 6 feet separation and go get your vaccination on the 50-yard line of the Seahawks stadium, even though it's supposed to be stored at 30 below zero. Like, it goes on and on and on, that now we can see, if we open our eyes, that this is ridiculous. And so what really just irks me is what you just quoted or played for us was a Republican senator. Okay, I've talked on and on and on about the Senate being useless, but wait until you hear the Democratic senator's turn to make this guy sound like he's the Messiah again.
Right.
He's not. He's the devil. So my point is, politicizing science, never a good idea. Politicizing gender, never a good idea. Politicizing race, terrible idea, because sooner or later it's going to eat itself. And now we're getting to see that the mad scientist behind the curtain was Dr. Anthony Fauci. I read Robert F. Kennedy's book, The Real Anthony Fauci, 5 years ago. So I knew this guy was no good. And like I told you, I lived in San Francisco in the 80s. I remember this, AZT. And then what he did to Snoopy, you know about that?
What he did to Snoopy?
Yeah, Snoopy the Beagle. And so Fauci was spending taxpayer money on all these experiments on beagles, where he literally put their heads in a cage and attacked them with sand fleas just to see what kind of pain, and then they cut their vocal cords so they couldn't bark and cry.
Okay, I get what you're.
If nothing else, if you just threw everything else away, I was just talking on Twitter about this. Forget grandma being stuffed into a nursing home by Andrew Cuomo, who apparently was convinced to do it by Anthony Fauci. Just for the dog abuse alone, I'd put him on an anthill covered in honey.
Okay. When you said Snoopy, I was like, what? No, I get what you're saying.
He's the most famous beagle in the world.
Yes.
Give him his credit. Give him his props, you know. He's not the voice of reason or anything, but he's Snoopy.
I'm speaking with Steve Abramowicz of the Heartland Journal. We only have like about a minute left. I was going to ask you about the Odyssey because you saw it. I saw it too. I gave my review, but did you have any thoughts about that movie?
Quick. The Odyssey, the whole thing about the Odyssey, I just wrote an article about it, and I call it Culture Corner, because everybody freaked out. Oh my God, Elliot Page or Ellen Page, formerly known as, is going to be Achilles like Brad Pitt was back in the old day of Troy. Guess what? That's not the role that he plays or she plays, whatever you want to call it. So that was a big social media face plant where everybody got up in arms and the protests were out and people were freaking out. And it turns out, guess what? The role that he plays, Simmons, is the fake person who is the one who tricks Troy to open the doors for the Trojan horse. So it's like the perfect casting technically. But
I didn't think about that.
I even knew this from the previews, because when he dies, he gets shot with an arrow in the shoulders. And I'm like, wait a minute, Achilles is supposed to get shot in the heel. So it wasn't it. So it was a big trick.
Okay, good. That's actually a really good point. I didn't think about that aspect of it. Steve Abramowicz is the founder of the Heartland Journal. Read his stuff at heartlandjournal.com. Anything else before I let you go, Steve?
God bless America, and I hope Fauci gets his just rewards on this side of heaven or not.
All right, there you go. Steve, appreciate it, my friend. We'll talk to you again next week.
Bye.
It's a long way to Nashville from that Napa Valley vine. Put me on a road less traveled. Lord, now I know why. God knew I'd get there in His perfect time.
Heartland Journal Podcast is the media property of heartlandjournal.com, where you can find news stories, commentary, and content serving the heartland of America. Any views or opinions represented on the podcast are personal and belong solely to the creator and do not represent those of the people, institutions, or organizations that the creator may or may not be associated with in professional or personal capacity unless explicitly stated.
Now I write songs about the heartland. My heartland's in Tennessee. Now I write songs about the heartland. My heartland's in Tennessee.